Welcome to Walking with Spirit with Dr. Ruth Anderson on the International Angels Network. Today is Thursday, June 28, 2018. I'm your host, Ruth Anderson, and I'm coming to you live from Colorado. I'm an author and a spiritual counselor providing individualized transformational experiences for my clients using Holy Fire Reiki, energy work, and connection with the spiritual divinity, including the Divine Mother, Archangels Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael. Here at International Angels Network, we explore spirituality, angels, spirit guides, our loved ones on the other side, and much more. Our radio podcasts are available to you on Pocket Casts, Pinterest, Player FM, Podchaser, and Stitcher. These are all easy sites to use and make it really easy to listen to our archive shows. Tonight is the fourth week of our 5-week mini-series with guest Linda Dierks. Linda will be leading us in our learning about self-esteem, energy, and spirituality, and how together they can propel us into stepping into our authentic power. Linda is both inspirational and motivating. This episode of International Angels Network is sponsored by Holistic Light Rejuvenation Center. For more information, visit holisticrejuvenate.com. Sturgeon is the founder and CEO of Holistic Light Rejuvenation Center and is a host on our network. We are pleased to announce that International Angels Network is now also sponsored by Audible by Amazon. If you go to www.audibletrial.com/International Angels Network, you can get a free audiobook. So please check that out today. I would like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to listen in. This show is called Walking with Spirit. Walking with Spirit means consciously living in the physical realm with frequent connection to the divinity in the spirit realm and being open to all that they want me to experience. Every day I check in with my guides, Divine Mother and God, sometimes seeking guidance, sometimes seeking connection, and sometimes seeking their healing abilities. Many days I receive lessons by hearing, seeing, or feeling signs coming in from the energetic realm. I never know what my day is going to look like or what the next learning might be. Each week I share a story about an experience I had while walking with Spirit. My story happened just last week. My family was flying home from our summer vacation, and I used the 3-hour plane flight as an opportunity to work on a new manuscript. This book is about the lessons I've learned while walking with Spirit. At 33,000 feet, I wrote on my laptop, got about 30 minutes in, and then we hit turbulence. I have had several experiences flying with turbulence, and I'll admit it, I get nervous. As soon as I get anxious, I ground my energy, ground everybody on the plane, and call on Archangel Michael to calm my nerves. I imagine him literally calming the air in front of the plane. Each time I've done that, the turbulence has subsided within just a few minutes. On this last flight, I kept typing through the turbulence until it got bad enough to really demand my attention. I closed the laptop and closed my eyes. I said in my own mind, Archangel Michael, as if I wanted him to stop the choppy air currents in front of the plane. I heard, "You are all right, I know," because I do know, I trust that. I rested my hands on the closed computer. My hands started to heat up, and it felt as they do when I'm giving a Reiki healing to a client, hot and full of healing energy. I realized that while I am typing my manuscript, my intention was to provide healing energy to the readers, and the words were actually infused with the healing energies of my guides. Awesome, that is exactly what I was hoping for. An hour later, the voice of our pilot came over the loudspeaker. He actually sounded frantic. That's not a good sign. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, put your seatbelts on. We are about to experience some severe turbulence for the next 10 minutes. I felt my heart rate quicken. I looked at my daughters, who were already looking at me. I closed my laptop and held on tightly, not sure what to expect. I closed my eyes and grounded my energy, and then grounded the energy of the plane. I asked for Archangel Michael and remembered that he had promised earlier in this same flight that I would be fine. I heard him say, 'Do you believe in me or not?' I answered yes. He said, 'Then keep writing.' 'But,' I stammered, I heard Michael's authoritative voice, 'Then keep writing.' Okay. I opened my eyes and opened my laptop. I kept writing while also bracing myself for severe turbulence. A few minutes passed and there had been no turbulence. Absolutely none. The seatbelt sign flashed off. My oldest daughter looked at me and rolled her eyes. I smiled and thanked Archangel Michael. So thank you for listening. I would now like to tell you about Linda Dierks, our guest host for this 5-week mini-series, Step Into Your Power. Linda comes to us with a career in corporate America, career as the director of a regional chamber of commerce, worked for a counseling program, and is the director of a small college. Her decade-long journey of discovery started as a cancer patient, disabled by fear and depression. After studying several alternative health modalities and wellness philosophies, she found accelerated healing and joy in the integration of science and spirituality, and now helps others achieve self-empowered physical and mental wellness. Linda is a pioneer of self-wellness through the mechanics of energy, power of thought, and love. As a speaker and author, she illustrates and models the methods behind her triumph over illness and depression. Linda's passion is teaching energy medicine workshops for people suffering from cancer and major illness, addressing stress and substance abuse, and enhancing intuition, creativity, and problem-solving skills. Linda's writing has been featured in the March edition of Guide for Spiritual Living, Science of Mind magazine. Her article, titled Growing Through Adversity, Finding the Gift in Illness, Adversity, and Spirituality, is inspiring. This article and her blog, Creating Joy and Wellness, are both available on her website, spinstrawtogoldnow.com. So without further delay, it is my honor to welcome Linda Dierks. Hello, Linda.
Hi, Ruth. It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Linda, before we get started on our topic tonight, this week our show was about self-love. And this week I learned a new skill having to do with loving myself. So I wanted to share that with you.
Oh, wonderful.
I learned how to stop doing whatever I was doing and listen to my body. Now, maybe all of the rest of you already do that, but for me it was new. And I don't mean listening to my body to see if I'm hungry or tired, but more along the lines of, what was that pang I just felt in my heart, or the stress that just pulled at my shoulders? And the more I listened, the more my body is trusting that I care and will respond to what my body is telling me. So I actually learned how to listen to myself.
Well, I think that listening to yourself is a great way of tuning in. It's one of the wonderful ways that we learn to love ourselves too, is to honor what our bodies are telling us. Everything that happens in our minds is going to happen eventually someplace in our bodies. It's that classic mind-body connection. And this is also why muscle testing works so well. I know that you use muscle testing in the form of finger dowsing with the work that you do. And we're seeing such a miracle in the way that our minds affect our physicality. It's great to have you tuning in, and thanks for sharing that too.
Yes, and hey, Linda, I saw your blog post today, and it was about the body positive. Can you take a minute and talk us through that?
Well, last week we had some wonderful feedback on the topic of self-love, and this week's post is called the Body Positive, which is a program that's been established for positive body image, and I share the link with that in my post. It was interesting that this topic was suggested to me by a friend of mine who leads retreats for the TOPS program, which stands for Taking Off Pounds Sensibly. So I hope that the information will get spread through a lot of the community. I look at myself in the mirror every morning, and I know just as a process of writing this piece, I learned a lot about myself. So we get into, in that topic, we get into beauty. Beauty doesn't come in just one flavor. We all have our own style of beauty. And beauty, more than our appearance, is an attitude. And I say that beauty is an attitude that is one size fits all, and tell everyone just to hit the runway and feel the spotlight. So if you enjoyed self-love, you'll really love this tag along about positive body image, body positive. And again, you can find that on my website at spinstrawtogoldnow.com. So I'll walk into the blog, Step Into Your Power Part 4, called Walking with a Higher Presence. I'm not sure that everyone realizes as they're listening that each of these topics has been, based on a blog and a 5-part series that I wrote. And this one, Walking in with a Higher Presence, is going to be fabulous for Ruth and I, because we're going to be right in our element. So, launching in. Intellectual, social, creative, and spiritual fulfillment are the basic needs of human existence. Since prehistoric man, we have expressed spirituality in countless ways that are personal and unique to each of us. I define spirituality as recognizing that I am a being of energy within a greater energetic field. This universal field that I call spirit is filled with abundance, joy, and wellness, and is invested in me achieving my best. Called quantum spirituality, it is the union of science and spirituality. This energetic force has a high vibrational frequency. When you incorporate spiritual practices and live by spiritual principles, you raise your frequency and you become more closely aligned with this abundant presence. A meditation practice increases this connection, or anything that brings you inspiration and joy will open your crown chakra, creating a deeper bond. Hiking, gardening, art, music, family, rejoice, engage, expand. Play, live in glee and wonder, and you align in the flow of a divine presence. A note on Stephen Colbert's desk emphasizes joy is the most infallible sign of the presence of God.
Wow, who would know?
You step into your true power when you engage with this higher presence as your partner. Confidence flourishes when you know that you are never alone and have an ally that's invested in your joy, wellness, and prosperity. The hard edges of life soften, and you are propelled as the barriers of self-doubt and fear fall away. Step into this dance and watch your life expand. Key point, raise your vibration. Awaken to this higher presence and become a co-creator of a life of abundance and wellness. And this great quote, spirituality is one's recognition of the universe as a living presence of good, truth, beauty, peace, power, and love. And to this should be added happiness, joy, enthusiasm, and universal harmony, which, like the great rhythm of life, flows through everything. And that's by Ernest Holmes. Ernest Holmes, by the way, is the founder behind the philosophy of the science of mind and the Centers for Spiritual Living Churches. that I'm about to become a spiritual practitioner in. So I'm especially fond of the work of Ernest Holmes. So I can launch into that and unpack it. As we say, I pack 10,000 words into 3 quick paragraphs. And we'll launch into some explanation. Do you have anything to add, Ruth, before I jump in?
You know, there was one thing that you said in particular that really jumped out at me. And you said you step into your true power when you engage with this higher presence as your partner. Confidence flourishes when you know that you are never alone and have an ally that's invested in your joy, wellness, and prosperity. And that made me think the journey that I was on and have continued to be on was very lonely for a while because I had nobody else in my tribe. I didn't have a community of like-minded individuals. And what I realized at the time was that there was no other human that was experiencing at the moment what I was in connecting to a higher presence. And so really my tribe, my community at that point became the spiritual divinity. It became that higher presence. It became my tribe and my community. And I really wonder how many people think about engaging with a higher presence as a partner rather than as, you know, some God on a shelf somewhere that is just out there somewhere and you can't actually connect. But you are saying have them be your partner. And I actually just got goosebumps saying that. Actual partners. That's profound, Linda.
I love the words that you chose, God on a shelf, because the point behind this message is that God and divinity is not something that's separate from us. It's something that flows through us. We are part of a greater whole, as we said earlier. I am a being of energy within a greater energetic field. So that lack of separation, that lack of a distance between us and that higher presence, this is what we need to get rid of and recognize that this good is flowing through us all the time. Thank you, Ruth. I love that. It's great. So we're going to launch in. Intellectual, social, creative, and spiritual fulfillment are the basic needs of human existence. These are components that are identified as essential to human needs. Psychologists will reiterate these words all the time and their importance that we feed these aspects of our lives. And I go on to say that since prehistoric man, we have expressed spirituality in countless ways. Research actually indicates that even before our thinking brains had that frontal cortex, before that thinking part of our brain had developed, ancient man actually buried their dead, indicating that there was a sense of spirituality in their lives, even dating back to the point of prehistoric man. And I think that's important to keep in mind. And all of these spiritual countless ways, they are personal and unique to each of us. We look at one another, we are all sparkles that were uniquely created by the divine. And like our personality and our intelligence and our imagination, everybody holds a different expression of how they experience life. You can't really tell how another person is experiencing their world of spirituality.
Absolutely.
Each of us is looking at spirituality in a different way, and each of us shares our spirituality in a different way. I know that there are parts of my spirituality that are deeply personal, and I don't talk with them readily except for other people who have demonstrated that they have similar beliefs. If anyone's interested in the history of spirituality, Michener wrote a wonderful book years ago called The Source that outlines the development of religion and spirituality through the mechanics of an archaeological dig. It's a very interesting book if you want more information on the history. And then I say, I define spirituality as recognizing that I am a being of energy within a greater energetic field. We touched on this. We are a wave in an ocean of information, and when we become part of that ocean, when we allow this flow to come through us, then we access more of that potential and possibility. And this universal field that I call spirit is filled with abundance, joy, and wellness, and is invested in me achieving my best. This line, achieving my best, invested in achieving my best, I think is really important, because there's a constant uplifting in my life today, knowing that this greater energetic field wants me to be my best, wants to be my partner. My guide once said to me, hold out your basket and let the universe fill it. Is that beautiful?
That is. I'm just thinking of examples of that. Yes, go on.
So I call it quantum spirituality. It is the union of science and spirituality. When I went looking for core wellness, core meaning, core basics to the universe, I came up with these mechanics of energy, and they apply to our spiritual as well as our physical lives. And then this energetic force has a high vibrational frequency. When you incorporate spiritual practices and live by spiritual principles, you raise your frequency and become more closely aligned with this abundant presence. Last week we talked about the power of love, and love is one of the fastest and easiest ways to raise your frequency. When we do raise our frequency, we become a closer alignment, a closer fit with this abundant field, which is also a very high frequency. And then all this good that's available in the universe comes tumbling down. We block this abundance with anything that is low frequency, obviously. So if you're judgmental or critical, if you engage in stress, electronics, any negative thoughts, when you change your thoughts, you change your life, and we keep reinforcing that. When you change your thoughts, you raise your frequency, and then you align more closely with this universal field. A meditation practice increases this connection, or anything that brings you inspiration and joy will open your crown chakra, creating a deeper bond. We all talk about meditation, and we'll talk about practices a little bit later, but we don't give enough attention just to the things that bring joy into our lives. This is also very, very high frequency. Joy, inspiration. You're going to open up that crown chakra. Meditation, it is proven to make us healthier, happier, and smarter. So why wouldn't you want to do it? But also a high frequency is more consistent, more coherent energy. So there are fewer peaks and valleys in your life. And I want to repeat this. When you run into high frequency, that wave of energy is very tight and very close together. When you run at a low frequency, then you're running at a very concise rise and fall. So your life becomes like a ship on an ocean. You're being tossed around by this low frequency. When you stay in a high frequency, then you don't have those peaks and valleys in your life. So more on joy. Hiking, gardening, art, music, family. Rejoice, engage, expand, play, live in glee and wonder, and you align the flow of a divine presence. And again, anything that inspires you opens that crown chakra and connects you with divine energy. We should never downplay the importance of our lives and the amount of joy that we can feel. I call it the unsung gem of joy. I'm a hiker.
Linda, say that again.
The unsung gem of joy. It's like an unsung hero.
Got it.
It's the unsung gem of joy. To kind of hold that joy in your life and make that your goal. So that's what I do for fun. I love hiking, love nature. Do you have things that you do aside from this work that create great joy in your life? You're a much busier person than I am.
I'm sorry. I'm just laughing because the things that bring me joy is talking mostly with my daughters because they're the most wonderful young women I know, connecting with my friends and writing and being out in nature. I mean, those couple things, it's like everything that my soul seems to need.
It's interesting that you say that, because one of the things that is a clue to what's going to bring you a lot of joy is the things that you engage in where you lose track of time. And you mentioned writing. When I sit down and I start writing, I can look up an hour and a half later and realize how much time has gone by, and I don't even realize it. And nature, I need to paraphrase a quote, again, by Ernest Holmes that says, nature is the physical manifestation of the mind of God, ever expressing and unfolding. It is a great way for us to observe around us how much bounty there is in our lives. So,
yeah, that's beautiful. Absolutely
it is beautiful. I love being out in nature, but I'm blessed. I live in Vermont, where there in the summertime, where there's just everything unfolding here. I'm going to talk a little bit about this quote that I emphasized that was a note on Stephen Colbert's desk. It says, "Joy is the most infallible sign of the presence of God." That quote originally actually was by Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. He was a philosopher and a Jesuit priest back in the early 1950s. So it was nice to see the Jesuits working on this concept of joy also. And then you step into your true power when you engage with this higher presence as your partner. In my words, you have more personal strength and potential in your life when you engage with your Creator. You are becoming a match with the source in your life, the source that created you. Again, you're creating that flow that's coming through you. You become part of and a recipient of enormous power. I feel far greater power since I've engaged in a spiritual life than I ever felt before. When I had a small me, that was when I was only me, and I became a large me when it became me and this enormous force that was part of the presence behind me.
Right. See, Linda, this is so powerful. I want to say that line again. You have more personal strength and potential in your life when you engage with your Creator. That's huge. More personal strength and potential when you're walking arm in arm with your Creator. Wow, that's huge.
When we are separate from the force that created us, then there's no way that we can be a part of this huge amount of abundance that's available to us, and I can't emphasize its importance. Speaking more about that, we talk about confidence. Confidence flourishes when you know that you are never alone and have an ally that's invested in your joy, wellness, and prosperity. And in my words, you're confident that you have a divine force that's part of you. And one of the biggest things that made a difference for me is that I didn't doubt myself any longer. I knew that my choices and my decisions were right on track, and that sure-footedness brought a lot of confidence and a lot of gain into my life. And then I say the hard edges of life soften. Just imagine your life without the sharp, pointy jabs and snags and things that come down your life. All of a sudden, sharp edges are softened because you have just fewer of those peaks and valleys. And I know that I'm never alone. I know that a higher power always has my back. And then you are propelled as the barriers of self-doubt and fear fall away. Step into this dance with Spirit. Watch your life expand. This is a process of capturing power. It is always there, but you have to say yes and step up to the plate. When you invest time and energy in Spirit, Spirit invests time and energy in you. And I know that the more that I've invested in the spiritual path, the more that Spirit has answered me just in information, putting me on the right track, opening doors for me, just coincidences and synchronicities that came down the track. And I'm sure that you may have some some stories on that line too. It's what I call a marble in a groove. It just seems as though gates just keep opening for you.
Well, absolutely. A couple things come to mind, but one of the first things that comes to mind is when you were depressed, you were sick, you had hit your lowest low when you stepped into this understanding of energy and spirit, and it helped you to gain some traction and get to a place of strength. But Linda, while you were going through that, as you were embracing this new way of thinking, did it impact relationships that you had? Did you lose any relationships as a result of accepting this new reality in your world?
Do you mean relationships with other people, or do you mean relationships with
other
higher
people?
Power?
With other people.
I absolutely changed relationships with pretty much everybody in my life, and the life purpose that I felt that I was on. As I intentionally raised my frequency, I found that the friendships that I had, I kind of outgrew them, and I made new friendships. I left some old ones behind, but I replaced them with new ones. I think that I had to get to a point where I was absolutely desperate to make huge efforts to bring myself out of it. I think until we're truly effort, we sort of get by and we put up with it. But it's not until we hit, rock bottom that we really invest tremendous amounts of effort into it. And then that guide was there, just always talking to me and always reassuring me. Initially, it just started with Go ahead.
No. You said it started with
Well, initially it started. This is one of the reasons I'm such an avid hiker, because this is when I could erase the trauma out of my brain and become connected when I was out in nature. And initially, the messages started with "Stay the course, stay the course, stay the course," and as desperate as I felt my life was, just receiving this constant message of stay the course, the more I investigated, the more I learned, the more I engaged in the practices of meditation, the more I raised my frequency. And then eventually, over and over and over again, over the last few years, and probably 10 years now, my guide has consistently said, "We are one, come dance with me." And by that I know that it goes back to what we were saying earlier. There is no separation. We are one. They say also, "Do not separate from me. We are one. I express through you. Recognize me as part of your life." This is a constant dance of escalation and joy. Spirit expresses through us. I was at a workshop 2 weeks ago with Deepak Chopra, and he said, "We are all God, just in drag."
Wow.
He was a very entertaining guy. So, in our bullet point, raise your vibration, awaken to this higher presence, and become a co-creator of a life of abundance and wellness. And this just wraps the whole thing up. It's very easy. Just raise your vibration through love, meditation, creativity, and joy, and then just hold on to your hat. And then, again, this quote, "Spirituality is one's recognition of the universe as a living presence of good, truth, beauty, peace, power, and love." And to this should be added happiness, joy, enthusiasm, and universal harmony, which, like the great rhythm of life, flows through everything. So, we covered the basics. I thought I would take a look at this and wondered from our listeners' point of view, what are some of the things that they might be interested in? So, Ruth, please chime in here. But one of the things on the top is, what's the definition of spirituality? So I pulled out two definitions I'm going to read for you. One is from Pam Grout. Pam Grout is one of my favorite authors. She says, "It is a force field of potentiality, the force field that runs through the universe, the same energy force that grows the flowers, forms the scabbed over skin knees and constantly pushes for wholeness. I love her attitude. Forms the scabs over skin knees and constantly pushes for wholeness. This is this force, as you see a flower blossom and say, what is creating that force? And that's her definition of spirituality. The other definition I have, of course, is one that is very near and dear to me because it's my own. It says, spirituality is the recognition that you are part of a greater force. It is self-discovery and the continuous unfolding of fulfillment, joy, potential, and personal growth through your connection to a higher power.
Nice.
So do you have anything to add there, Ruth, before I move into...
I've got a whole book to add. It's hard for me to actually come up with just one thought because so much just popped right into my brain all at once. So I guess I just want to make one comment, which is what I have seen as far as God and God being an energy force rather than, a figure that looks like a man somewhere. And what I have been taught about one love, that God as an energy is just an amazing source of love that has love for everyone and everything, non-denominational, not prejudiced, if you will, against anyone, just a loving God. And so when you talk about spirituality, and, my thought goes to God or one love, as I've been shown it, and my thoughts go to the archangels, and my thoughts go to just our own spirits and our spirits that remain even when our bodies have passed from this life. Just spirituality, the spirituality of a tree or an animal, plants, just that whole very in-depth conversation about what does spirituality mean. It's energy, and it's the force that combines each of us together as one. I don't know, that's a book right there.
I really enjoyed reading One Love. I think it's a brilliant book and did an excellent job. One of the things that I wrote recently was that God is unconditional love, absolute unconditional love.
Right.
And the concepts of being judgmental or critical, these are man-made constructs. These are not.
Right.
These are not attitudes or energies that came from a divine force. The divine force is always love, and if we can go back to that again, that gives us that sure-footedness that we always have an ally walking with us. And I love that. Just keep coming back that low frequency energies of being judgmental or critical of ourselves or of others or controlling. These are all man-made constructs. These were not matters that came down to us from a divine presence.
Well said.
Spiritual practices. This is a lot of fun. There is an endless supply of spiritual practices from you, as you say, looking at the energy around a tree to being in a Buddhist monastery. But one of the terms I've always enjoyed, it's a Japanese term, actually. It's called Kaizen, Kaizen, and it is the art of achieving personal growth in small steps. And I think most people...
Well, I'm sorry. I'm laughing because small steps, like, holy cow, I would welcome some small steps. I feel like I keep being thrown off a skyscraper every time, so I'd go for small.
Actually, I was talking to another member of my tribe one time. I keep a book, a journal of a lot of the clairvoyant work that I do, and I said to her, I'm not writing down the little things as much anymore. I'm really only recording the big ones. And she said, don't do that. If you don't record the small things, then you're shutting off, the blockage and part of the flow for those big things, those big bangs that come your way. So keep track of the little ones as well as the large ones. Small steps, people may look at a spiritual practice as though a lightning bolt came down from heaven and all of a sudden you were transformed. And of all the people that I know that truly engage on a spiritual path, that didn't happen to a single one of them. There were certain things that led up to them. Of course, you've had some pretty profound experiences yourself. Yeah. And I've had some really profound experiences also. But what developed on that practice of these experiences were the small steps that I took. It's as though the profound experiences were Spirit saying to us, okay, I am stepping up to the plate to meet you. And I said yes to Spirit, and I stepped up to the plate also. And we worked together step and step and step and step. And it's a constant process of raising your frequency. And again, as I say, becoming closer to the energy of the divine. And I use these 4 simple words: open, ask, listen, and discover. We spend so much of our lives just engaged in the day-to-day, and we need to stop and open and say, hi, I'm here, I'm open, I'm listening. Meditation, that's a great inspirational practice, but anytime you can stop and just open up, then you're opening up a portal for this information to come down through you. When I say ask, the information is there. You need to step up and ask, say, send this to me. Your guides are always there, and if you step up to the plate, they will too. Remember to ask. Open, ask. And then listen. The veil between Spirit's communication and what we receive is amazingly thin, and we weave in and out of it all the time. One thing we talked about several weeks ago, it might be just a really thin thing, like my father coming through to me and hearing, an old song that he used to sing all the time. Mm-hmm. The messages that we receive can come in millions of different ways, and we just need to be open. They're always trying to create a vocabulary with us, and we need to be open and just listen to that and say, oh, gee, I never noticed that before. All of a sudden you have a thought that comes in. And that's where the discovery comes in, that growth is just moving up the ladder as your joy, wellness, and your intuitive skills develop. So it's open, ask, listen, and discover. And that part of discovery, I look at that as being another part of closure and what I call the loops of energy. The more you discover, the more you go back, and you say more, and the universe says more, and you just keep in this ever upward escalating spiral.
Linda, can I add something on to that?
Sure.
So looking at your 4 topics there, open, ask, listen, and discover, what the hardest one for me is to stop long enough and listen. Because my mind is, I'll ask, and then my brain is on to the next thing, and I'm thinking, how can I do this, and all that. But really stopping long enough to just listen is kind of tricky. So it's thanks for saying that.
Well, it is tricky. And it's a discipline just like the rest of our practice. It's like peeling away the layers of an onion. We start with certain aspects of our practice, and then we start seeing aspects of ourselves, and then we open up more practices that are going to contribute to that. But it jumps back into that same conversation that we were having recently also about the intellectual and the experiential, that it's our nature to fall back into the intellectual because this is our reality and our timeline and our left brain lives. It's a little more difficult for us to fall back and spend more time and balance the intellectual with the experiential, to take that time. And it is a discipline. I'm working on a piece right now talking about the importance of, actually the art of allowing, the art of stepping back and allowing information to come through us. I know that you and I have talked about how when we stop and allow spirit to move through us, how much richer our writing and our thinking and our speaking can be, because all of a sudden we're working on a topic and we'll see something, we'll hear something. This. I'll tell you a little story about this body positive blog that went up today. I happened to be hiking with a friend of mine, and we're both yoga people. We just happened to be talking about yoga, and we thought of, Jessamine Stewart, who's a famous, positive, generously proportioned yoga people. And there are, a lot of people that are becoming role models. All of a sudden, this information just comes to you. It's almost synchronistic. And I know that you experience that too.
Absolutely.
The second point, along with meditation, love, altruistic love. Anytime you express love, you're going to increase your frequency. So learning to operate from your heart is extremely important. And when you talk about love, we need to include ourselves, and especially as well as others. We express love for others, but especially to express love for ourselves. If you see someone who looks like they're having a bad day, send light and love to them. And one of my favorites, whenever I see an ambulance or a fire truck go by, I send love to whoever is on the other end of that emergency. Love is an act of compassion. Yeah. So it's a great way. It's just a trigger to say, okay, every time I see an emergency vehicle or I see someone on the street and they look like they're having a difficult day, just take a minute and it makes you smile inwardly as you send love to someone else. So I'm going to take a minute here. I'm going to do this exercise. It's called Second Opinion. And if everybody were to take their hands and rub them together, and that activates the energy in your hands, and then hold your hands cupped out in front of you and send love in between your hands. Pure love, no other thoughts. It doesn't take very long of doing this, and all of a sudden you notice that your fingers start to tingle. And if you were to look at them, you might notice that your hands moved further apart. This is kind of a physical illustration of how powerful love can be. There's another exercise that I like a great deal, and bring to mind something that might be kind of a sticky issue in your life. And then hold your hand up to your temple and intellectually think about the dialogue that's going to go through your head as you deal with this issue. You might say, well, I'm going to do this, and then this might happen, and when that happens, well, was that the right thing to say? Did I do the right thing? Am I in the right direction? And then, instead of thinking out of your brain, think out of your heart. Move your hand down and physically touch your heart and think of the same issue. And you'll probably notice that your dialogue changes a great deal when we think from our heart instead of thinking from our brain. Studies actually go ahead.
Not only that, Linda, but as I was thinking with my hand on my temple, and of course I can only do it with one hand because I'm holding onto the phone at the same time. But with the one hand, as I was thinking about the contentious issue or the difficult issue that I had, the energy in my head, in my brain, was actually like pushing my hand out and away, which was not feeling very loving at all. It felt kind of separating, if you will, like a barrier almost. And then when I put my hand on my heart, and thought about the exact same issue, by working with the energy in my heart, it actually made my hand go closer to my heart, and it felt more loving and accepting. So that was really interesting.
I think that it's absolutely brilliant that you experienced that, and I just learned something from this too. Is that if you're holding your hand to your head, when you're working out of your head, you're working in separation from your divine source. So your use of the word separation was perfect. But when you're working from your heart, you actually are working in tandem with your divine source. That's a great way to put it. But scientifically, they found that your heart actually has 60,000 neural cells. It actually has a brain of its own, and they found that as you react to things, your reaction actually occurs first in your heart and then goes to your brain, not the other way around. And they've also found that your heart, the energy field of your heart is actually 50,000 times stronger than the energy field that comes from your brain. So this is great to keep in mind. If you're interested in more information on that, you can Google Heart Math. They're a wonderful organization. Another point that I want to make on this is that when you do this, you also are raising your consciousness, you're raising your frequency, and when you raise your consciousness, you also raise the consciousness of everyone around you.
Nice.
This is a great way for you to affect everyone. So when you manage your thoughts, make them always positive, you come into a higher frequency. Another higher frequency thing to remember, I call it the acronym GIFTS, G-I-F-T-S. G stands for gratitude. I stands for inspiration. F stands for forgiveness. T stands for trust. Trust is extremely important because trust is the antidote for fear. And then, of course, S is for sharing or for love. Meditation, of course, is a great way to increase our frequency. You have to create the time and you have to create the space. And what you do after you meditate, the rest of your life will be much, much richer. And you might just start with, 5 minutes in the morning while you're waiting for your coffee to brew. Again, Deepak Chopra, he really is, they portray him as being quite somber, but he really is a very funny guy and saying things like, we are all God in drag. But Chopra says RPM, and that does not stand for revolutions per minute. He says rise. This is his this is his theory on meditation, and he explains that in the morning, your brain waves are already closer to that alpha wave level. So you are already closer you're already getting away from that beta wavelength, and you're already into an alpha level. So you will achieve deeper levels of meditation. Simple ways are just to follow your breath, focusing on your thumb. Focusing on your thumb will calm your mind, but that also is a great way to open your third eye chakra, just as a by the way. Wayne Dyer had a great point on meditation also. He said to focus on a spot at the back of your brain. So take a minute and just visualize if you were to focus on a spot on the back of your brain, how that helps you calm your thoughts. Ruth, I know that you get up very early and meditate every morning. Do you have any other meditation suggestions?
We've got about 2 minutes here, Linda, but one of the things that I have learned to do just recently is, and this goes back to the loving yourself and listening to yourself, is to kind of get my body and the thoughts in my head out of the way so I can just be a clear, open channel. I have learned to think about my inner small self and just stop for a minute and just listen to my inner small self, just acknowledge myself, love myself, and then I can kind of set her, if you will, aside. And then the thoughts don't come up because I've already been heard to. I've already been listened to.
That's an excellent way to put it. I'm looking down here also. I think that our listeners might be someone interested in the piece around intuition and clairvoyance, maybe sometime we can have a deeper conversation about all of this. One of the things that I notice when I'm completely tuned in is that I hear a high-pitched tone. This started about 4 years ago as I was intentionally raising my frequency. One of the things you're saying that you listen, and one of the things that I use commonly, and we laugh about this also, is what we call the ping or thud. If you're trying to make a decision, you're trying to tune into something, again, to quiet yourself and tune in. Bring the issue into your mind. Does it come up as a ping or does it come up with a thud? I feel it instinctually, but I think sometimes I actually feel it in my body. It'll be like a leaden feeling that'll give you inspiration. Holding a vision, again, you can visualize something, and if it stays in your visualization, then probably it's true. If it fades away quickly, then probably it's not. I'm an avid dowser. The American Society of Dowsers has a wonderful school. I know that you use finger dowsing or muscle testing. Remote viewing. You'll laugh at this one. I practice remote viewing by watching Jeopardy and knowing ahead of time who the winner is going to be.
Oh, that's cool.
Because
are you pretty accurate?
I am pretty accurate because these shows are pre-taped, and I'm a Jeopardy freak, I admit. But because these shows are pre-taped, that information is already stored in the Akashic records, and that's energy, and that's energy that you can always retrieve. And okay. I know that you know
Linda,
yes/no answers. I know we need to go.
Yeah,
go
we
ahead.
do need to go. So I'm going to let you go, but I'm so glad you were with us tonight. It's such an honor to be here with us all and International Angels Network, and I look forward to walking with Spirit and you all, Linda included, next Thursday, July 5, 2018. God bless.